Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. In this video, I wanted to talk to you more about being a mother and being a police officer. So I have covered several different questions that people have asked me in different Q&As that I've done, but I've never created an actual video dedicated to that subject or more information on it. So I wanted to create this video also because I get a lot of questions from young women about this, whether they already have children or they're thinking about getting into law enforcement. They're curious how, that's going to impact children or having them or what will happen with that. I'm not sure if this is going to be a video where a lot of people are going to be interested in watching it, but I do know many of you have reached out to me and I really wanted to create something for you to be able to go to and reference, or just more information for you, my experience in general. I think anytime you are a mother and you're working, especially outside of your home, I think that is difficult. And to maintain everything you want to do in your career and everything you want to do as a mom, I think you're going to have conflict with that no matter what the situation. Although I've had some challenges with that, I've never encountered anything that I think was just absolutely terrible or a deal breaker in that regard. I think there's always a way to figure things out or make them work for you and your family. But I also don't want to put a lens over or sugarcoat some of the different challenges that you probably will encounter having children in law enforcement. So the first thing I think would probably come to most people's minds is just that being a police officer can be very risky. There is always an element of danger. Obviously, being a police officer, whether you are out on 911 calls or you're in some kind of a special unit or team, there's always going to be that element of possibly being injured or killed. That's something that I think is important to consider. I think it was interesting when I was in college, there was a young man in one of my classes, I think it was the Policing in America class, and he actually said he would not have children because he thought being a police officer was too dangerous. And while he was saying this, he was talking about the different places too where he was applying, and I don't think I had heard of an officer being killed in decades in those places. You can't not pursue something in your life just because of a job. And really, as much as I love law enforcement, and I do believe it is a career, it is also a job. It is, work that I do, that I get paid for. As with all police officers, there are definitely many elements and different things that you do within that career, but at the same time, something could happen. You may not be a police officer anymore. It cannot be your whole life and your whole meaning. I do see that there are a lot of people where it is, and they are completely obsessed with it. It's all that they do or talk about, and to me, that's pretty draining. And also, I would never want that for me personally, where that could be the only thing that I knew anything about, or the only job I had ever done, or the only thing I could really talk to people about. I think ultimately, whatever your interests and hobbies, things that you enjoy doing in life, those all need to be incorporated into your life, not just being a police officer and having that be the only thing. With that said, I have found the most challenging and rewarding thing that I have done in my life has been becoming a mother. So having my children and raising them, that's definitely been the highlight of my life. Essentially means way more to me than being a police officer or anything like that. I really hope that people don't bypass, parenthood or having that experience because they're so drawn into or so interested in doing some kind of job or career, whether it's law enforcement or something else. But I had to mention that too because I've heard a lot of people talk about that, but to me that would just be very unfortunate. I think one really important thing you can do is be smart about planning your family around your career. Now, sometimes people already have a family when they're getting into law enforcement. I think that would be a little bit more challenging because you'd have to balance what your job wanted more around what your family needed. But when you don't have children yet and you're younger, probably getting into law enforcement, you have time to build your career a little bit, and then also time to gain more seniority within your department, which can also be helpful when you're looking to do things later in your career when you do have children. So if that means you want to go to some kind of a day shift to accommodate a child's schedule or a school schedule, that probably is going to be easier for you. But I also do see people who come into law enforcement with children and they just figure it out and make it work. One thing that I think is very difficult with having children in a family is anytime that you have a shift transfer transfer. So anytime you're not working the same hours that you were before, you have to kind of go with the flow and try to make things work the best that you can. But along with that, I think it's so incredibly important to have support with a family and with children. So whether that's a spouse or a partner who can, you know, kind of be there for you when you're not able to be there with your family because of working, or a friend or a family member, or you could also have a sitter or a nanny, but hiring people to help you and kind of pick up where you can't be there because of work. That is extremely important. Working a job that is not a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday thing, when you could have off days canceled, you could have your hours shifted around. There may be special events, there could be different details going on where you're gonna have to adjust your schedule, adjust your family schedule, adjust everything that you have going on essentially, so that you can accommodate what you're needing to do for work. It's really important to have support there. Just like me personally, my husband is with our children the majority of the time when I'm working, and if he weren't able to do that, or we weren't able to do that as a family, it would be very, very challenging. In years past, before my husband retired, we used nannies and in-home care for our children because that's what would work with our schedules. When you have to work until midnight, like daycares aren't open, different places where children can be or do after school care aren't open, your children need to be at home sleeping during that time, so that's really not an option. And that's something that I think is more difficult, not just with law enforcement, but with any kind of public safety or any profession when you are working hours that are potentially 24/7. You can also plan your career with what you have going on with your family as well. So one thing that I avoided was, for me personally, was pregnancy during any kind of promotional testing process, just because I knew I would be completely exhausted and I wouldn't have like that extra energy and time to spend on reading everything and studying. I knew that it was going to be very, very difficult, so I avoided that during those times. But also it just happened to work with kind of how I wanted to sequence everything with having my children and my family. So having some kind of a plan or idea of what you want to do as far as having children or your family in conjunction with your career can be really helpful. I've seen people come on and they immediately don't have any experience really being a police officer, and they're pregnant, and so now they're not really doing the work that they did all that training to do. And then sometimes these people get shuffled around and they end up doing non-enforcement, and so they still really haven't gotten experience as a police officer. I think it's really important, especially that first year after you finish the academy, to be working and getting as much experience as you can as an officer, and getting that time is very helpful. I have seen people not do this. Not gaining experience in the very practical daily patrol activities is only going to hurt you as you continue to further in your career. You can never do 911, and you could like potentially, like let's just say you go to some kind of a tactical group unit very quickly after you become an officer. Well, you didn't really learn or develop how to police solo on your own. I've seen before where these people then become supervisors, and again, never really had that experience of policing solo on their own, or really understanding what a patrol officer is doing and dealing with, and then, you know, continuing to move into these different positions or be promoted, and again, not having that foundation. I think it's also very important when you're promoted to go back to patrol, learn the foundation of being a sergeant or a lieutenant with patrol in a patrol capacity, understanding what the day-to-day is of your agency. Your agency can have, you know, I love large agencies that have a lot of different things that you can do. So at the end of the day, even if everything else fails, you're still going to need people answering 911 calls. That is the foundation of really any police department. So you need to understand how to do these different things. I would say to try to plan around that. Don't be somebody who finishes the academy, immediately becomes pregnant, and then you're not, you know, actually learning how to do police work. Also, before you have children, I think it's important to understand how your agency works and what kind of impact that can have on you and your family life. One example of that is that you won't always be put on day shift, or you may be in an agency where you rotate shifts. Is that something that you can work out as a family, and is that something that you can accommodate? Usually with different positions, nothing is forever and nothing is permanent. So you may be put onto a shift or in some kind of assignment that doesn't work for you or doesn't work well for your family, but that doesn't mean that you'll be there forever. That's something too that I have really had to think about and focus on in my career. However, there's also a time and a place to discuss this, bring it up, and see if there's some kind of action that needs to be done or can be accommodated for you. While nothing is permanent, you can get a pretty good feel for what is happening around your agency, of when people are usually being moved or transferred or having different position changes or assignment changes. Keep an eye on that and understand what is kind of common practice for your agency. And then you can also refer to that if you are in a situation where you feel you aren't being treated similarly. I will say to that too that I think shift work is very difficult on children and families. The few times that I worked morning watch, which is the overnight shift, that was very difficult for my family. I did not like not being able to put my children to bed. I am not the kind of person that thrives on that overnight shift. I absolutely hate it. But that was temporary, so it didn't last forever. I didn't have to be in that horrible work situation forever. So, you know, that's just another kind of example for you of where things may not always be ideal, but many times they'll also change in the future. So you don't have to, you know, get too upset or worked out about it. Just take it day by day and get through. You should know what your agency is able to accommodate as far as while you're pregnant and when you have your baby. Will you be utilizing FML? Do they have leave of absences? Do they offer any kind of paid leave while you're out having your baby? Will you use all of your own time? How does that work within your agency? That's definitely something you want to know and understand. And I've also seen time and time again where women either do not even attempt to promote, or whether that's, you know, they don't take a promotional exam and they're not even trying to do that because they know that they're going to go to a shift or a schedule that is not going to work for their family life. I see this a lot, and it's very discouraging to me as, you know, a woman and a police officer, because there are so many women who would do really well in these different positions, or maybe it's a senior police officer or a detective position, but they actually choose not to do it because they have to maintain the schedule that they have, or they're not going to be able to pick up their kids from aftercare in time, or pick up their kids from school in time, or daycare, or whatever it is. And I really hate to see this. It's interesting too because we have a leadership program that we do in conjunction with, I think there's other departments that are in there as well, but the Israeli police, from time to time, some of their female commanders come to our agency, and I guess they pull in other women to come and talk to them about what are some of the different things that we see within our department. And something that they see and struggle with too as well is that women are not taking the promotional exams. They're not wanting to be or choosing to be in these different leadership type positions or supervisory positions because they cannot have that scheduling conflict or change due to children. I think it's interesting too because when you look at the primary caregiver for children, that's usually women. Usually you have a stay-at-home mom or a work-from-home mom, or however you want to do it, but it's usually a woman that's taking on the majority of childcare and responsibilities for children and families. And with law enforcement, it just is very difficult with the different kind of scheduling things that can come up. Or you'll see when you have male coworkers, their wives have very structured work schedules. So I've seen this with different, you know, officers with wives who have civilian positions, or just different jobs where they maintain a very regular schedule, like that Monday through Friday 9 to 5 type thing, where the husband can then, you know, be out and doing the crazy hours and all the different things that are needed for what they need to do within their career. I'm not saying this happens all the time, and I mean, it is what it is when you're working any kind of job that's 24/7. I always think to people in the medical profession, so doctors, nurses, different kind of hospital staff, thinking of places that are operating 24/7, they're probably dealing with similar issues as far as scheduling. Having a plan would be a good thing, in my opinion, for what you're going to do with having children, childcare, and really understanding what your agency requires and different things that they may or may not have available for you. And you are going to need help or support of some kind. So whether that is, you know, more people or family or friends in your life or hiring people, you're going to need extra help with kids. That's just my opinion. I haven't had too many times or situations where I wasn't able to do something that I wanted to with my family based on my agency's needs. I also am a big planner, so I have things already scheduled and planned out. I know, you know, what's going on with the kids' schedules and what they're doing. So it's very helpful to be organized in that manner and have a really good idea of what you'll need to do, when you'll need to be available, and you can have those different expectations set. Let me know down below if you guys can think of anything else that you think would be difficult. If you are a young woman considering this profession, I don't know, I've actually talked to women in law enforcement who've said, you know, I didn't have kids because this is just so crazy, and I just feel bad because children are so incredible, and it's such a gift and blessing to have them and be able to raise them, and definitely just the best thing that I've ever been able to do in my life. And I guess one other thing that I'll throw in here quick is that when you retire or die, which will happen to everyone, you've heard me say this more than once, people at work are obviously going to acknowledge that. They're going to be sad and all of that, but for what you want for your life, you know, if you don't have your family or as much family as you wanted, then I think a lot of people regret those things more than not doing more within a career or something like that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know down below what were some things that I didn't talk about or some things that I missed. I want to hear about what you guys are thinking. And again, if you're a young woman coming into law enforcement, you can definitely make policing work with having a family and wanting children. You can do it. You may have to plan. You may have to be more strategic with what you're doing, and definitely knowing and understanding your agency requirement and culture, because that's very important. Sometimes things are written down to be structured in a way, but implemented differently. As always, y'all stay safe out there, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys. Need people doing 911. Doing 911.